Welcome to the Bone Pile. Today I've got a bone to pick with Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves is a massive game with probably hundreds of hours of content. I've been playing for 158 hours and haven't even finished the main goal. When I first started, I was completely unaware of anything and was simply learning to steer the ship. The best way to learn, however, is to play, and play I did. Other ways to learn include talking to other people who have been playing the game for years, and also gaining experience from doing certain quests that the game asks you to do. However, a lot of the game is left for you to discover yourself, and I feel like that is why Sea of Thieves as a multiplayer experience is the best. There are a couple things to do in the game, the main objectives being the three main alliances that you can level. Your goal is to level the Merchant Alliance, the Order of Souls, and the Gold Hoarders, all to level 50. Each alliance has different quests that you can take and vote on with your crew that lead you to islands on the map, whether they are named or just maps or are pointed to by a compass. The basic gameplay loop for almost all of these quests is go to the island via your ship, dig up the chest, fight the boss or pick up supplies, and then go back to the outposts and sell. The outposts are scattered all around the sea, and the map is fixed and never changeable. On the way, you might encounter other players' ships, who you can sink or be sunk by, events, which I'll talk about later, and other random things like megalodons or krakens. Each area of the map is a server, and once you join each separate server, you might encounter other players who have been leveling for hours, or who are just logged in. Voyages, which are the main gameplay loop, can last from an hour to 2 hours, or even longer than that, depending on the difficulty. I have spent entire days attempting to fight a single boss or do a single quest due to either the difficulty or just messing around. Besides leveling up the three alliances, you can do one of two things. You can do events or you can do tall tales. Let's talk about the events. Flameheart is the big bad final boss of the game who appears as a giant orange floating skull. He has 3 waves of ghost ships which die in 3 cannonballs and drop storage crates, which you can pick up with your harpoon and use on your own ship. They contain things like wood and different types of food, which you can use to heal or repair the ship. After these waves, with about 20 ships in each, however, the ships die quite quickly, Flameheart and his lieutenants spawn, and you kill them to get lots of loot for all 3 alliances. So Flameheart is worth it, however it takes a really long time to complete. Ashen Lords appear as giant red swirling tornadoes above islands. They have lots of health and 3 waves. The first wave they can choose from a variety of attacks: shock waves, flame balls, shotguns, flame breath, or spawn enemies. The second wave is virtually the same, but they do get more damage and they get an extra attack from the list above. The third wave, they plant themselves and fire a storm of meteors, which can one-shot you if you are not undercover. When they die, they give you a lot of random loot, which gives a good amount of XP for all 3 factions. Skelly Forts appear as giant floating skulls, and are a set of 5 or 6 random waves that each have white skellies, gold skellies, or black shadow skellies. They give pretty good loot sometimes. However, if it isn't Fort Friday, which is an event that happens every Friday, it's not worth it. Skelly ship battles appear as a giant floating ship in the sky as a cloud, and are a set of 3 waves of skelly ships that gives probably the best loot out of all the events, even Flameheart. However, chalking it up against the amount of time it takes to complete Flameheart, and the amount of time that it takes to complete skelly ships are definitely more worth it, as in they give more loot because they don't take as much time. However, while Flameheart gives more loot, it takes much longer. Most of these events, excluding the random megalodons and krakens, are pretty much worth it, although Flameheart is never worth it because it takes too long, as I've previously mentioned. The multiplayer in Sea of Thieves is a little complex, as most multiplayer games are. However, connecting to people is pretty easy, and it's interesting how you almost always connect with Xbox players if you're on PC. I have met many people through the random sloop connection, which is one of the 3 ship types, so I guess that's great. There are 3 different types of ship lobbies: sloop for 2 people and tryhards, brigantine for 3 people and friends, and galleon for 4 people and casuals. If anybody has galleon, you are dumb. Why would you take galleon? Sloop and brig are the best 2 ships. Sloop because you can customize and specifically target, and people aren't going to not want to do that, and brigantine is just for stuffing around. What's really interesting is that unlike most multiplayer games, lag is a very minimal factor in Sea of Thieves. Of course, it really depends on your internet connection, but I've played with a couple of Americans across the water and also some Europeans, and in both cases, the internet connection has never caused me to stop playing or had a problem with them. However, the lag can sometimes cause you to fall off the ship randomly, and often you can get these really weird crashes where ships float up out of the waves and then the game crashes. That's only happened to me 3 times though. The world of Sea of Thieves is probably the most intriguing and interesting part for people coming into the game. The game is enchanting in its visual beauty, and the world serves it as well in the stories and lore behind each of the quests and stories, and the kind of ideas behind each of the alliances are unique and interesting and not based on any stereotypes. Nighttime has nice effects as all the lanterns on the outposts and island give a nice visual flare shining from out from the water, so you can easily tell what's an outpost and what's an island. Daytime is bright and lovely, and almost lo-fi art cover that just springs in just delicious visuals of blues and greens and sandy yellows. However, the best part of Sea of Thieves, in terms of the visuals, are the waves. They are so pretty all the time, and they change color, they change vibrancy, they change shape. And to compare it to another game, I would say that Wind Waker's waves, the updated version, don't look as good as Sea of Thieves. I could argue that quite heavily. And the reason why that is in Wind Waker, when you're driving for hours around the ocean, the waves kind of get tiresome to look at, because they're simply blue and white. However, that was the style of the game, and most people in the comments will disagree with me, but I would argue that Sea of Thieves waves are more visually enticing purely because they have visual difference across a lot of the different kind of phases of the game. However, my favorite angle of kind of the way that the game looks is when you stand on the bow of the ship and you look back, because the angle that you get from that position really adds up and makes the game really almost visually enchanting all the time. Each of the islands as well, the main kind of land that you'll be visiting, are also quite interesting. They're very visually different and varied in their shape and size, and I've never really had a moment where I've gotten bored of an island or thought, oh, this looks the same as everything else. A lot of the assets that are obviously copy and pasted because of how large this game is, they don't really seem like they're copy and pasted unless you're truly looking for it. I would argue that this game's strength is its visuals. I would argue that Sea of Thieves is one of the best indie games to come out in the past decade, being its pure multiplayer focus and easily accessible gameplay, along with its very expansive story and also its main guidelines. The new Seasons update was a welcome change to an already boring game. After playing for so many hours, simple things that became normal and part of the game were boring and hard to look back on as exciting. Now that Seasons is out, Rare has an immense opportunity to update the game beyond its current value and to create an experience unremarkable to any player, whether they have played for 2 hours or 100. I would argue that Seasons should be more than a cosmetic update, an update of the game's major principles, a way to make everything exciting no matter how old the content is. This game has so much potential and it's already being used, but I would argue that there is so much more to do. In conclusion, I believe Sea of Thieves is one of the best games I've ever played, and I would recommend it to anybody who can get a hold of it. It's a very expensive game and a very heavy game in terms of the amount of download space, but it's 100% worth it if you want to play a single player or a multiplayer game that isn't a shooter or isn't a strategy game. I would recommend it within every single inch of the time that I've spent playing it. Thank you guys for watching this video. This was my first review that I've ever done. I hope that it was of good enough standard. Hopefully I'll improve it in the future. Welcome to the Bone Pile. This is my channel. I hope that you stick around, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get notifications about the next video. I'll be posting vlogs about my university experience and also talking about other games that I am fond of or absolutely adore. I have a lot lined up to record and set up, so I hope that you'll stick around to see it foster out. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.